We'll take questions from those of you in the room and over the phone. And if you're joining us on the phone, please press star 1 to enter the queue. First, I'll hand it over to Administrator Nelson.
I am very proud of this launch team. They have solved several problems along the way, and they got to one that needed time to be solved. I am very grateful to you all for your patience. This is a brand new rocket. It's not going to fly until it's ready. There are millions of components of this rocket and its systems, and needless to say, the complexity is daunting when you bring it all into the focus of a countdown. You all, no doubt, have been up for some period of time. Our remarks are going to be short, and we will open it up for your questions. I want to say that the Vice President was here. She was pumped the entire time. She is very bullish on our space program and on this particular program of going back to the moon and going to Mars. We had her meet with assembled guests. We had her meet with members of Congress that were here. She toured the O&C building and saw the Artemis hardware there for the future. And overall, she had a very productive visit. And I would expect that you will see her at a future launch. I want to say that understand that scrubs are just a part of this program. On the space flight that I participated in, Hoot Gibson, the commander, 36 and a half years ago, we scrubbed 4 times on the pad. It was the better part of a month. And looking back, had we, after the 5th try, got off to a perfect mission, it would have not been a good day had we launched on any one of those 4 scrubs. So when you're dealing in a high-risk business and space flight is risky, that's what you do. You buy down that risk, you make it as safe as possible, and of course, that is the whole reason for this test flight, to stress it and to test it to make sure it's as safe as possible when Artemis 2, when we put humans in the spacecraft. So for the details, let me turn it over to Mike Seraphin.
Well, good afternoon. It's been a very dynamic 48 hours since I was last here to talk to you. The technical issues that the team has worked through, they've overcome a number of them, but we ran into one that we need a little more time to look at. But the spaceport, America's spaceport, has been very dynamic. We watched a launch control center, a new spacecraft, and a new rocket come to life. And we watched the media show up. We watched thousands of visitors show up in America watch this new activity. So it's been a very dynamic 48 hours. Since we had our launch minus 2-day mission management team meeting, the operations team out of the Launch Control Center entered their launch countdown Saturday morning. And then Saturday afternoon, we had a couple of lightning strikes out at the pad. We have a 32-story tall rocket out there, and there were lightning strikes on towers 1 and 2. And our technical teams very quickly resolved that there were no issues with the vehicle through timely analysis and timely data assessment. Saturday afternoon, we also closed out an action from the Launch minus 2-day mission management team, which was to re-verify our communications coverage associated with some late changes that we had with the rocket and the spacecraft, and the team got comfortable with the communications coverage plan. And then Sunday was largely a day of rest and a day of preparation for the team. And late Sunday evening, a subset of the team came in for the tanking meeting. Myself and our launch director, Charlie Blackwell Thompson, and our propulsive elements came in at 10:50 this evening, or the prior evening, and we reassessed the readiness to load the vehicle with cryogenic oxygen, cryogenic fuel, and we were go for that. We had a go weather forecast, which was 20% chance of lightning, 40% chance of precipitation throughout the cryo loading period. And right around that same time frame, the team encountered an issue with the verification of the Orion flight software. It took about 11 minutes to have a command acknowledged to help verify the flight software, and it was a simple misconfiguration. One of the command and control modules was not activated, and the team quickly resolved that. And then once they configured it, they quickly worked through the software verification, and there were no concerns at that point with the Orion software verification. The tanking meeting itself was very clean. We were done in 30 minutes, and we gave the go for tanking. Shortly thereafter, the Kennedy Space Center went into a lightning alert, and the tanking was delayed for about an hour. And then once the cryo loading started, we started the loading of the hydrogen. The team quickly encountered a hydrogen leak at the 8-inch quick disconnect, which is our fill and drain, and that happened when they went into the fast fill phase. So they had to slow down the loading operation. They chilled down that interface, and they managed to work their way through the full cryo loading operation of both the core stage as well as the upper stage successfully. Once we got through the propellant loading on the rocket, both the core stage and the upper stage, they started the engine bleed. We talked at our flight readiness review about the engine bleed. We knew that that was a risk headed into this launch campaign, and it would be the first time demonstrating that successfully. We did encounter an issue chilling down engine number 3. We need the engine to be at the cryogenically cool temperature such that when it starts, it's not shocked with all the cold fuel that flows through it. So we needed a little extra time to assess that. When the team started working through that, they also saw an issue with a vent valve at the inner tank. So the combination of not being able to get the engine 3 chilled down, and then the vent valve issue that they saw at the inner tank really caused us to pause today, and we felt like we needed a little more time. There was also a series of weather issues throughout the window. We would have been no-go for weather at the beginning of the window due to precipitation, and later on in the window we would have been no-go for lightning within the launch pad area. So the team worked through a number of issues today. The team was tired at the end of the day, and we just decided that it was the best to knock it off and to reconvene tomorrow. So we've got a mission management team meeting at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to give the team time to rest, first of all, and then come back fresh tomorrow and reassess what we learned today, and then develop a series of options. It's too early to say what the options are. And then, as Jackie said earlier, we will come back and talk about where we stand tomorrow evening with all of you. Again, it's an incredibly hard business that we have. In spite of the challenges that we had, as well as some other constraints that the team had to work through and set up for. For example, we had 42 collision avoidance cutouts that we had to manage over the course of the 2-hour window. Most of those were only a couple of seconds long, but there were a few that were about a minute long. You know, when you start thinking about the type of mission that we're flying, it really helps you understand just how unique and how complex the Space Launch System is, and the Orion and the Artemis program is. We have this upper stage, the interim cryo propulsion stage, that lofts the spacecraft to a 975 nautical mile insertion orbit, along with the SLS core stage. And with that, we need the performance from it, but we fly through part of the orbital debris field, the micrometeorite and orbital debris field. And then one orbit later, we commit to the point of translunar injection. So as we fly up through this orbital debris, and then back down to low Earth orbit, and then out through the point of translunar injection. We have to know where all these objects are, and that explains those 42 cutouts. And that is something that our operations teams were prepared to do today. We just didn't get to the launch window. So a number of challenges. We were ready for some of them, and the technical challenges we encountered on the engine bleed and the vent valve are just some things we're going to have to go look at today, look at tomorrow after we get a little smarter and get rested. So with that, I'll pass it to Jim.
Yeah, so good afternoon. So the administrator and Mike covered a great deal of things. I'll just highlight a few things for me. You know, I sit in a different vantage point than Mike does. His is a lot more fun, by the way. But we, you know, we're in the LCC, and I found some things in the team today. This was a really important attempt for us. We talked about that after Wet Dress 4. There were a lot of questions of, you know, should we have rolled back, tried to do another test? We felt and still feel like going for today was the right thing to do. And that comes in a few ways. Our launch team was really, I'll say, pushed today. They were working a lot of issues. They were looking at the compressed timeline with that hold at the beginning, and we were filling all 4 tanks at the same time at one point, really pushing our team through a timeline. Weather, you know, Mike talked about some of the weather. We talked about lightning. Weather was coming in and out. We were actually not able to go at the beginning of the window like we thought. There was a lot of comms from the launch weather officer. The hydrogen out of spec that Mike talked about when we went to manual control, that's something we did on the locks when we had some issues loading locks the first time. Going to that manual control to me is learning. And getting through the first hydrogen leak that we had, that was the same leak we had on the same line to the same level. And when we started to do the manual fast fill, honestly, it kept climbing, and I thought there's no way we're going to get out of this, and that got us out of it. So to me, what we pushed the team through, and I know we always get a lot of talking about the team too much, but we continue to learn. That's what we're doing. We're testing, I think Bob Cabana said it, we're testing the people and the processes. So we've put ourselves through a compressed timeline. We're going to get some shorter launch windows we'll have to deal with, where these skills will help us. I know you've heard from Charlie about extending our timeline about an hour earlier to give us time to work things. I think that helped us today to work things. And frankly, engine 3 that Mike talked about, we definitely didn't get down to the temperature we wanted, but the other 4 weren't as low as we would like to. So there's some things going on that the team needs to go off and look at the data and understand how this is different from what we did during the green run at Stennis, and then figure out a path forward, which is ultimately where we want to go. We're not going to have all the data and the implications today. I'll reiterate that, what Mike said. But we felt we owed it to you to share everything that we know. So, and I can assure you there was no other group of folks, not just the folks that worked last night, but the folks that started this countdown. There's no other group that wanted to get through this successfully than those people. So with that, I'll turn it back to Jackie.
Thanks, Jim. Just a reminder for folks joining us on the phone, you can press *1 to get into the queue. But first, we'll take some questions from the room. Marcia Dunn, AP.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press, probably for you, Mike, or Jim. Is Friday or Monday even feasible since you're dealing with an engine? And might you need to replace this engine? Could this be a problem unique to this? But I guess not, since you said that you didn't get the temperatures on any of them that you were looking for. I'm just wondering what could be the worst case here.
Yeah, Mike, go ahead. I'll add on.
Yeah, Friday is definitely in play. We just need a little bit of time to look at the data, but the team is setting up for a 96-hour recycle. So they're still holding in the launch countdown configuration, and we're preserving the option for Friday. They're replenishing the commodities out at Launch Complex 39B. You'll see some of those activities tomorrow. And right now, The indications don't point to an engine problem. It's in the bleed system, the thermally conditions the engines. We did change the diameter of that from Stennis, where we did the green run testing, to here, and we never fully got into the engine bleed configuration through the prior wet dress attempts, and again, that was something that we talked about at the agency flight readiness review as a known risk to our launch campaign, and at that time we said we would not launch unless we got through the demonstration of our ability to thermally condition the engines. We need that in order to start the engines and run them successfully. So we just didn't get there today. And again, this really points towards an engine bleed issue on the core stage side, not on the engine interface side. So I don't know, Jim, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I just add, we actually stayed loaded longer to try and figure it out, so that we were trying to save as many cycles on the tank as we could. So I think we tried to, I'll say,